when is the greatest time for them to train within the day from the circadian rhythm and then the month as well.
Yeah. Well, I think, with males, it's always sort of the way that the testosterone spikes in 24-hour schedule. I think there's a lot of conversation and research around males training like earlier in the day, before noon, et cetera, and that being optimal. And I work with some men in the breath and the cold and the athlete space, but for women, really understanding that for me, it's even less about the time of day as much as it's about how you're cycling periodization, which is no pun intended. It doesn't have anything to do with your period. It has to do with how you're training month over month for, let's say, 3 to 6 month period, and how you're stacking weights and creating maximum overload and all of that in the course of your training. And we've been doing it like men, and that's fine. And it's worked in some regard, but it's not optimal. We've been doing periodization training with a deload week the same way men do. And of course it works for human bodies, but because our hormone profiles are so different, we want to cycle our strength training and our fitness in general around the monthly cycle of when we're our reproductive years. And if we're in perimenopause or menopausal years, it's even more important to strength train, because that's when we have a propensity to lose muscle faster, right? Sarcopenia, if you want to be sciencey about it. So muscle wasting happens faster if we don't lean in. I was just having a conversation about creatine with Sean Wells, who's world's greatest ingredientologist. He's an amazing guy. And creatine has been I always sort of felt like a little socialized, creatine is for like big, heavy dudes in the gym, right? It's built into my psyche in some way. But when you look at the research on creatine, it does all the things as we age as women that we need it to slow down. It helps hold on to muscle. It helps bolster our strength and performance power. All of it is and creatine is generally clean, not every source, but generally well sourced, generally clean, and not expensive. So, titrating it just to make sure it's good with your gut and all the things, and just starting and putting it into your regimen is awesome as a woman. That's kind of a sidebar and one supplement I'm starting to vibe with a lot. But in the midst of all that, we can strength train. Let's say it's around day 5 or so right at the end of our period. If the first day we bleed is day 1, about day 5 or so through day 10. Now day 5 through 15, that's about 10 days. So it's really only 7 days in there, but every woman has a slightly different length of cycle. If you're tracking it, you might know when you're leading up to ovulation. And basically it's the week that leads up and into ovulation, because as soon as ovulation happens, we have a drop off of estrogen and progesterone starts to rise. So we want to play with the estrogen, which helps develop muscles. There's plenty of research about this that no one's been talking about. Not no one, it's getting better, but since the 80s, they've been researching this. And so even the first 10 or 15 years of my training, I didn't know about this. And I was like, why did this take so long for me to hear about it? Could it be optimizing my training in a different way? Utilizing that window, that anti-catabolic, that estrogen window, that day 5 or 6 to day 15 or 16, something like that. I call it max effort. I'm like, max effort. You may have to take a rest day because we're only as fit as what we can recover from. That's the time that I say, let's go as many hard days as we can. And we have a little bit more propensity for joint laxity. So I don't do anything overly explosive in that, box jumps or something. I'm working on weight, strength training, hypertrophy, if you want to get nerdy about muscle building terminology. And we're getting to that place. That's the focus. And then the rest of the month, we can vary in other things. We can still strength train a couple times a week, but especially the week before the cycle, we feel typically, generally, a bit more introverted, a bit more insular. We want to self-care more. And those are the times to do a lot more recovery, to do things that are softer, gentler, maybe taking a yoga class. Even if it's some kind of yoga class that's a little more powerful, but really feeling into the things that are going to light us up, turn us on, make us feel really good before we get to our period again, right? But some women may be dealing with PMS symptoms at that time. So it's really kind of a nice way to cycle those things in. That last week leading up to the period, I say, there's your deload week every month. And that is a beautiful opportunity to play with the cycle, So, so thanks for giving me a platform on that. I use the Flex Beam, which is how you and I initially met, over the Flex Beam stand. We got all nerdy and vibing over this red light portable therapy device. But that week, I use my Flex Beam every night in bed to help me down regulate, and I use it around training. But that week, I use it a lot, that week before my period, because it's just really nice to have settling in, recovery, cellular boosting, anything that's going to wearing it on my abdomen, things that might help PMS or cramps or what have you. So it's a really beautiful opportunity to recover that week before your period.